Hello my quilting friends! Leah Day here with a new Sit Down Quilting Sunday video. I have been quilting my hoop quilts for the fall and I have a new design to teach you. It's called Windy Feathers. So let's jump on the machine and see how this works in free motion. So I'm getting started on my windy feather design, and you can see it's this beautiful feather quilting where I'm filling the feathers into little gaps in between long, curving, flowing lines. And this design is going to fill really easily, really quickly through your space. As you can see, I'm just filling it in here around the center circle, making another hoop quilt. And right now I'm just carefully filling in the feathers in this area, trying to keep it consistent. If you have weird spaces like this, don't hesitate to grab a marking pencil and mark it. That's perfectly fine if that is what it's required to keep it consistent with the rest of the design. Here I'm doing just a little extra travel stitching. That looks great. Now I'll stitch out of that area and let me talk you through how this design works. So I'm going to travel stitch up. What we're basically going to do is create some just curving or flowing lines, and that's going to create a nice texture. It's also going to create a little bit of distance between this, a gap area, and our next gap area. So I'm going to travel stitch over a bit, stitch another gently curving line, and it can be anywhere from 2 to 3 curving lines. And now I'm going to go into a gap area. Basically that means I just branch out and form a gap. Reconnect with the line before it, and that creates this open pocket on the quilt. Now I'm going to fill that space with feathers. So first I'm going to stitch my line, that's the center vein that runs down the middle of the feathers, and now I'm going to branch out and fill in one side. Now I like travel back feathers. This is not the only way you can stitch it though. Basically I just branch out, traveling along the back of the feather from before, branch out with the next feather. Very, very simple. So let me zoom in here and I'll show you another way to quilt this. So I'm just branching out and around to form my feather shapes, but that's not the only way you can quilt it. Here I'm travel stitching all the way back down, just simply because that is what feels the most natural for me to quilt feathers, just from the bottom up. So here I'm going to branch out, I'm going to travel up the stem, come out and around and bounce against the feather from before, stitch out and around, and bounce to form a next feather. So that is what's called a bounce feather. So here I'm bouncing forward, careful stitching, now bouncing out. Now the reason I don't prefer this method to stitch feathers is it creates inconsistent travel stitching. I really like it when that stitching is always consistently along the back of the feather shape. That just looks better to me for some reason, but there's no right or wrong way to quilt it. It's just whatever works for you. So whether bump or travel back feathers, work for your brain, just go with what works for you. Okay, to move on with the design and continue filling the quilt, careful travel stitching over, and then branch out with another curving line. Now, if you have trouble kind of understanding how this design works or how it's flowing over the quilt, definitely check out my other tutorial on quilting flowing lines, basically the same design minus the feathers. I shared that in another tutorial. And here's what it looked like whenever I finished my beautiful hoop quilt with windy feathers. So that's it for this video. I hope you learned a lot about windy feathers and enjoyed seeing how I quilted this design. And I love how this came out. It was just the absolute perfect design for the background of this hoop quilt. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the machine that I'm using in this video, the Grace Qnique 14 Plus, you can learn more about it at leahday.com/grace. And if you're interested and you live in the United States, make sure to call the company and say Leah Day said, "Hello, my quilting friends," and they'll give you a discount on your order. So definitely check that out at leahday.com/grace. Of course, if you like the video, please like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel on YouTube so you don't miss the next video coming out soon. And we're getting ready to move this machine to a quilting frame and try an entirely new style of quilting. So I hope that you'll join us for that new series of videos coming soon. Until next time, let's go quilt.